All right, welcome to our mastermind of the Leading Through Crisis from the Real Leadership Company and Unstuck University. And I'd like to introduce everyone that's here tonight. Let's start with you, James.
You want me to? My name is James
say hello.
Friedman. Hello, Sonia.
Hi, James.
So welcome to both of you tonight. Before we do anything, I always like to kick off whatever we do with an attitude of gratitude. So if everyone would just take a moment and just share something real quick that you're thankful for.
Oh, I'll go first. Last week on Tuesday, let's back up a year. A year ago this month, I was diagnosed with stage 4 bone marrow cancer, given 1 to 5 years to live. And I prayed a lot, and I gave it up and gave it to God, let it go. And this past Tuesday, I met with my oncologist for my annual workup and retesting and a new prognosis, and I am in remission.
Praise God.
Praise God. I'm in remission.
Very good.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I'm grateful to have a relationship with the Lord, and grateful for my wife, 4 kids, and 5 grandkids.
Woo.
That's a mouthful right there.
Yes, sir.
Hey.
My 4th grandchild turned 1 year old today. My 5th grandchild turned 1 year old.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, God bless you for keeping track of that.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I'm thankful for second and third and fourth chances to the opportunity to keep going. And as John says in one of his books, failing forward and keeping moving forward. So I'm thankful for that today. So, welcome everyone. We're going to get started. What we're doing is we're starting with the video from John from a teaching he did about 3 or 4 weeks ago called Leading Through Crisis, Finding Advantage in the Adversity. And so I'm going to share that with you, and then we'll do a discussion around that. In the chat section here is the participation guide, so you can feel free to download that. Has everybody got access to that in the chat section?
Just opening up the chat now.
Okay, but I will also show it on the screen here once we get into that. But I just want you to be able to download it on your end so that you have it
I don't have
yourself.
It didn't come through yet.
All right. Well, it's actually been here, but I'm not sure as to why
Yeah, I
you
don't
didn't
see
get
it
it.
either.
But let me try one more time just for the sake of doing it. And it's coming up right here. And it is now loading. And I'll give that a second to load, and then we'll start the video from John. So it's so good to have all of you, and I'm just thankful we can all be together and to, think of, we're in the midst, obviously, of a crisis. We're in the midst of things falling apart. Nobody knows which end is up. And, but, it's that the leaders rising up and taking the challenge and not bowing out, but coming forward and looking forward to maybe find the silver lining in the gray cloud. And so I'm looking forward to diving into this discussion tonight with you. So that's file is still uploading. I don't know why it's taking so long. But okay, so I'll go ahead and just go with the video, and then we'll come back to that. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right, here we go.
Everything worthwhile is uphill. If you've heard me do any teaching at all, because I wrote a book called Intentional Living, you've watched me use the visualization of everything is worthwhile, it's uphill. And I put my arm in the air and I just basically say, up at the top are my dreams, my hopes, my ambitions, my desires. Everything good. It's up there. It's not down here. I got to climb to get it. Now, when I say everything worthwhile is uphill, let me tell you the difference between in average times and in crisis times. In average times, everything worthwhile is uphill. And during times of crisis, everything worthwhile is uphill. It's just a higher hill to climb. But we still can climb it. You see, we are not given an overcoming life. We are giving life to overcome. There's a world of difference. I'm not entitled to winning. I'm not entitled to having an overcoming life, but I am entitled to having a life of which I can choose to be an overcomer. You see, there's a wrong perspective, and the wrong perspective is that life should be easy. I'm telling you, my name is John. I'm your friend. Life's not easy. It's all uphill. Always has been. Always will be. The problem is we have uphill hopes, we have downhill habits. And downhill isn't going to get us where we want to get. So, I could give you all kind of examples. People hear me speak. I'm talking to you now. And people say, John, you're a terrific communicator. Well, I wasn't always a terrific communicator. This wasn't easy. First of all, let me give you perspective. I've spoken 12,000 times. Talk to me for a moment. If you speak 12,000 times and you don't become a great communicator, you chose the wrong field. 12,000 times. It's uphill all the way. The first time I spoke, it was terrible. Spoke for 55 minutes. I bored everybody. In fact, I went back the next year and apologized to the people that I had bored, and then I realized none of those people would ever come back to hear me the second time because I was so bad the first time. I wasn't any good. I wish you could have seen me then. If you could have seen me when I started, every one of you would be greatly encouraged. What am I saying? I'm saying very simply that it took a great amount of time, effort, energy, focus, concentration, commitment to become a great communicator. It's all uphill. Writing, it wasn't easy. Over 34 million books have been sold through my name and my writing. People say, wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. No, you got to understand, it was all uphill. My first book, Fake on These Things, I talked about a little bit ago, 100 pages, 33 chapters. Do the math. That's 3 pages per chapter. It took me a year to write the book. I wasn't any good at it. The book's not any good. Don't buy the book. Had a lady the other day bought the book. She came up to me to sign it, and I was shocked. She said, I love the book. I said, you love the book? Why do you love that book? She said, I love the short chapters. She said, how did you ever think of writing short chapters? I said, lady, I wasn't any good. I ran out of gas after 3 pages. In fact, some of those chapters are 2 pages too long. It literally took me 5 books to learn how to write. Literally. I took writing courses. I had writing mentoring. It took me 5 books before I said, oh, I can write. And it took me 11 books before I ever sold much. Now, it was a process. Now, I don't want you to miss this. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Nothing comes fast. Nothing comes easy. It's all uphill. It's okay. We're working on perspective here. The moment I believe and accept that everything worthwhile is uphill, guess what I do? I expect to walk uphill all the time. If I don't believe that, I expect it to be easy. I expect it to be average. I expect to coast some. You see, my perspective that it's uphill every day, all the way, is huge. We have John Maxwell team. Okay, here's a perfect example of this. We got the John Maxwell team, and we've had huge success with it. In what, 9.5 years, 33,000 members in almost every country of the world. And people look at that and they say, oh my gosh, John, this is huge. How did you get so good? How did you pull that off? It's uphill all the way. Now let me just stop for a moment and just say to you that I'm constantly asking myself, what can I do to add value to you? Because here's what I know. A crisis never leaves you or me the same. It moves us. It either moves us forward or it moves us backward. It either moves us upward or we go down. But it does move us. And we're saying, oh, I can hardly wait for things to get back to normal. I hear that all the time. Oh, my gosh, won't you be glad when this is all over? And wow, things will become normal, and oh, this will be so good. Can I tell you something? They're never going to return back to normal. Not the normal that you and I know. Trust me. There's never going to be that normal again. It's just like 9/11. After 9/11, we didn't go back to normal. I mean, every day almost I'm reminded of 9/11 through something that you or I have to do just because of safety precautions. So Max Dupree, when he said the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality, the reality is very simple, and that is that normal is gone and there's going to be massive change. Well, if the first responsibility for me is to define reality to you, my second responsibility for you is to help you make positive changes. Huge. And how do we do that? Well, I've been through a lot of changes. I've been through a lot of crisis. I'm 73. So in the 60s, I saw the assassination of some of our great leaders, John Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King. In the 70s, it was Vietnam and the incredible bitter taste that we had over political manipulation. In the 80s, we had AIDS, that for 2 years we were just trying to identify a virus, and we also had economic recession back then. In the 1990s, remember Enron and corporate undoing, and we were just kind of had lost our way ethically in that whole process. 9/11, of course, and then the 2008 recession. Now, here's what I want you to know. When things get out of control, what leaders do is they try to help people get back into control of their lives. And how do I do that? As a leader, how do I help you get back into control of your life? Well, you can control your own personal decisions. And a decision that I would hope that you would make during this crisis is a decision to personally develop and grow yourself. You see, the only guarantee that tomorrow is going to be better than today is the fact that I'm growing and I'm developing myself. I'm 73, but I'm so excited about my future because to me, I'm continually learning. I'm continually growing. There is no finish line in my life. And so how do we continue to grow? How do we continue improving ourselves? After the 2008 financial recession, I began to ask myself, how do I help other people? And I came to the conclusion back then that I was going to start the John Maxwell team. I didn't need another business. I already was quite successful in life. I had basically everything I wanted in my life. But I said, what would happen if I took people that wanted to better themselves? What would happen if I took people who wanted to better themselves? And what they need is they need good training. They need some people to good mentoring. And then what they need is somebody to put their good housekeeping seal of approval on them and say, hey, look, this person's a good person.
Well, apparently we have a loading issue. Let's, not sure why.
How far into the video are we? I can hear, but I can't see movement on the video. But I'm hearing fine.
Yeah, we're about almost half into it.
Okay.
But at this point, it is just it's just turning away there. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that then, because it's not going to start. Okay. So we'll just go on, and I want to bring up a quote to you that, what is that? Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so I want to bring a quote up to you really quick, and this says this: when you get into a tight place and everything goes against you, till it seems as though you could not hold on a minute longer, never give up then, for that is just the place and time when the tide will turn. By Harriet Stowe. So I think it's a good thing to think about in this crisis that we're in, and what we're facing and experiencing around us. And I think James and myself are from the Michigan area. Sonia, you said you're from Arkansas?
I'm in Arkansas, yes.
Yeah. So, we're all seeing the impact of this thing on various different levels. And, what are we going to do with the hand that we're dealt, so to speak? So I want to bring up the guide here, and we're going to look at that together. And so John talked about in the beginning of his talk there that everything worthwhile is uphill. We're not given an overcoming life. We are given life as we overcome. He says it's the wrong perspective to think that life should be easy. Life is anything but easy. Can I get a witness?
Amen.
However, and there you go. Thank you. He says, however, if we are willing to do the hard things, they compound in value over time to create a life that we could never imagine. And, I heard a concept on compounding today. This is a bonus, by the way, on talking about compounding savings and investments, making investments and the compound on that investment. If we just hold on to the money, if we just hold on to it, it's not going to grow. But if we invest it, or even in the kingdom perspective, kingdom of God, that we're investing that into the kingdom so that it will compound. Number two, he says there's always an answer. John shared one of the most powerful lessons he learned from his father, Melvin, who's in his 90s, by the way, and who said that his best days are ahead of him. He said the greatest gap between successful and unsuccessful people is their thinking. Successful people live on the other side of yes, and as a result, find answers others miss. And then number three, allow adversity to help you discover who you really are. Often, people do not see themselves clearly when their comfort zone is dismantled and their usual supports fall away. They lose the illusion of who they think they should be and are brought face to face with who they really are. So, he goes on, sometimes it takes a crisis to introduce us to ourselves, but we will rarely regret the introduction. This season of crisis might just be the catalyst for you becoming the person you are meant to be. So, how many people are discovering the person who they were meant to be during this crisis? Anybody got something to say on that question?
Well, I would probably have to say throughout. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sonia.
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. No, I would probably have to say that I've learned that two things. Number one, I'm not as patient as I thought I was. And number two, I hate when people, I don't want to say I'm a control freak. I think that'd be too strong. But I hate not being able to do the things that I want to do. And I find myself frustrated at times with that. So I think, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think through adversity, you find out your weaknesses, you find your strengths, and it helps you develop and find out who you really are. So I have to work on the control part and not get so frustrated by not being able to do the things that I want to do. And I think I had two members of the church, a family in my church that lost two people in a span of 10 days because of COVID-19. Because I'm a very hands-on pastor, it extremely frustrated me that I couldn't go to the hospital to see them. I couldn't help them with the funeral arrangements and those kind of things, because for 31 years, that's what I've done. And now all of a sudden, I'm being told by someone else that I can't function in the capacity that I believe God has called me. And that's very, very frustrating for me.
How do you handle that, James?
You know what? Believe it or not, it's I've, a lot of phone calls, text messaging just to check on on the families. And I have another family member, no church member. She just lost her dad, and so I spent an hour on the phone with her last night and follow up call today. And how are you doing? But still limited in what I normally would be doing as far as the visits and the going to the funeral homes, helping them make arrangements, things such as that, performing the ceremonies, homegoing ceremonies for their loved ones. So, and this is all outside of my control because I have someone that's saying, this is what you can do right now. So that's been very frustrating for me.
And I've wondered, how do I'm the type person, I need hugs.
Yes.
I'm a hugger. I'm a toucher. I need human contact. And thank you, Lord, for sparing me any losses so far through this crisis, because I cannot imagine how families, churches, pastors are dealing with the inability to just put your arms around someone and comfort them who need it so desperately.
Yeah.
And that's part of what fixes me. That's part of what helps me regroup, is that hug, that touch, that handshake. I cannot imagine what people are going through who are losing loved ones. And then you pastors who are left, we've lost people in our church, and I look at my pastor and I just don't know how he's dealing with it, because you can't comfort people in a way that they need it.
Right.
That human contact, even if it's an eyeball to eyeball. I can look at you, James and Tom, and we're connecting right now, but I guarantee you, if the three of us were sitting in a room together and not touching, just having that human eye contact, we would be connected much tighter than we are right now.
Yes.
And that, I just wonder how you deal with that, and when you have to face a loss during this crisis.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from a pastoral standpoint, and maybe I'll repent after all this is over, but I don't think I'm necessarily handling it too well. Because I got off the phone. We had our online Bible study last night, and Tom, to kind of go back to your question, I think I've grown a lot because I've relied on you a lot for this technical stuff. So I'm growing in that area. So I am grateful to the Lord for that. But after our online Bible class last night is when I got the call from this third member of the church that lost her father. And I stayed on the phone with her for quite a while, but I could tell you the fact that I wasn't, as Sandra said, I wasn't able to make that physical contact and touch. I was probably up all night, very frustrated. So, Sonia, your pastor's probably handling it pretty well, but I can honestly say I'm not. It's just extremely. I keep using the word frustrating because that's the best word I can use. For me not to be able to do what I feel is my job, and every 2 weeks I still get my check from the church, and it's just so frustrating that because I don't necessarily feel like I'm doing my job at this point.
Yeah, my pastor has said those exact words, that there's a he didn't use the word guilt, he used another word. But I took it to mean there's a little bit of guilt in accepting that check right now, because you can't be 100% what you would normally be.
Yeah.
And yet you're getting your 100% check. And
Yes.
my pastor is not comfortable with that at all.
Yeah. It's challenging, but I think this crisis has shown me where, as a leader, as a pastor, where I maybe I need to step up a little bit. And for me, it's a little confusing because I don't ever want to get comfortable with this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense. And I know it's a new norm, as John was saying, but I don't think I want to get comfortable with some of the new norms.
Right.
I don't want to get comfortable with no longer being able to have physical church and just online. I get it, and I see the benefit of it, and it is an asset. But I don't ever want, not at least for what God has called me to do, I don't want to see it take the place of any of this stuff.
Right.
Because as you said, Sonia, I just think it's that human connection. And I'm always reminded of the scriptures where Jesus goes to the tomb of Lazarus to resurrect him. He wasn't going there in the morning. He was going there to wake the guy up. But when he saw the people weeping, he was overcome with that human emotion of grief. And he himself wept, and my God, could he had that effect on the people? Because the Bible says the people looked at him and they saw that humanity of him. They said, he really loved Lazarus. And I'm wondering if they could have gotten that same connection and contact if it had been on Facebook Live. So,
Right. And you know what else? What gives me hope is that we are the church. That's clear. We people are the church. We're not a building. We're not a brick and mortar place. The people are the church.
Yes.
But I have to tell you, we must have fellowship among our church, and that we can do away with the buildings. We can have church on Facebook Lives and Zoom calls, but I guarantee you we are going to need that fellowship together. We are going to need that meeting place together. I don't care what anybody says, it's going to happen. You know what? God didn't create just one person. He created two. And I think there's a reason for that. We are not meant to be alone physically. We are meant to be connected physically with our brothers and sisters. And so our new normal may not be what we had before, but I cannot imagine not being able to fellowship with my brothers and sisters, and other than just Facebook. And I just think there'd be a riot. I just don't think you're going to keep us apart.
Amen.
I miss them so much.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Same here. I saw in the news last night there was a famous landmark here in the Oakland County area of Michigan. Was setting up a movie night, and they had sold out the tickets and done all the social distancing and had people pull up in their cars for a drive-in to watch this series of movies. And they actually had 3 or 4 nights scheduled and sold out. And just before they had cars showing up, the government of Michigan shut them down and said,
No.
you can't do it. And so they were just devastated that they couldn't do this thing. And even with the social distancing.
There's so much of that happening, and that troubles me. That just troubles me. I read where there was a funeral going on, and I want to say it was in Michigan, but I'm not for sure. But the pastor and the parishioners, they all showed up, and people got arrested.
Yes.
And that is unconscionable to me. I can't even process it.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I speaking on that note, I had just did a funeral with one of my good friends. His son committed suicide just about 3 weeks ago. So 4 weeks ago. So it was just as this thing was ramping up. In fact, they had already started, having people begin to stay at home, that kind of thing. And so there we are. There's quite a few people there at the funeral home. And so I talked to my friend just last week, and I said, imagine had this happened a week later, you wouldn't have had that consoling, that connecting with other people, friends and family. like you experienced, because there was a lot of love in that room.
Mm-hmm.
But people right now are doing this thing all by themselves. And I've done enough funerals to know that it's very difficult to go through something like this on your own. And it's just it's a tough time that we're in. You know, I remember being a part of a multi-level marketing group, and we were selling video, something similar to Zoom here, actually. And I was actually attempting to sell this product to funeral homes for people who couldn't get to the funeral, people who lived in a different state and couldn't travel the distance. But now it's a reality. That's the only way you're going to participate in the funeral, is through a video conferencing setup. So we're certainly in troubling times here, and it feels like almost like we're drowning, but coming up for a breath of air.
Mm-hmm.
And then going back down again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're fighting to find ground, and every time you come up, you're just pushed back down again. But it's the fact that we're not stopping, and we're continuing with that fight to not give up. In the first question here, John asked the question, do you agree with John's statement that everything worthwhile is uphill?
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that statement?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
And then he asked the question, why? Why do you believe that everything worthwhile is uphill? I want it easy. I want to take it easy. I want everything to come to me, right?
Yeah.
Not the way it's going to happen, is it?
Yeah, when that happens, you place a different value on that than when you actually have to work uphill. There's a lot more gratitude when you've worked uphill to get something versus it being handed to you. Yeah, I mean, I like when John said expect to go uphill. Just expect it all the way. And I think of friends of mine that retired back in 2004 when I retired. And honestly, a lot of them have already passed away. And I think when you stop climbing that hill, when you stop having goals and you forget your purpose and you stop using the gifts that God gave you, that you do just die, because you don't want to go up that hill anymore. You don't want to struggle. It is all uphill. And I think that's why I'm doing okay through this crisis right now, because I'm fighting that uphill battle. I know it's uphill. And answering the first part of this, you know, what have I learned through this? You know, I thought my journey was going along just fine until this crisis hit. And then I realized how much time I was wasting, how much further I could be in my journey if I had more focus and didn't let the outside world distractions distract me from my purpose and my journey. And so I have gone leaps and bounds through this, and because of the required shelter in place and not being able to go out, and but I do miss the good. Oh, look, James, who is that on you? That's got to be a grandchild.
This is the fourth grandchild. She just turned 2 not too long ago.
Oh my goodness, what's her name?
This is Leah.
Leah, what a blessing that you have her with you. Hi, Leah.
This one lives with us, so.
Oh, nice.
See her all the time.
Nice. Well, you know, I have a son and a daughter and 3 grandkids. And about 7 months ago, my daughter left New Hampshire and came down to Arkansas to take care of me because I went through a pretty bad physical time with the cancer. And so she just gave up everything and moved down here. So what a blessing it is to have her with me right now,
Amen.
because we are close.
Amen.
We are extremely close, and we laugh a lot.
There
So
you go.
we've helped each other
Mhm.
through this. We laugh every single day.
Amen.
I love it that you got a grandchild with you through
Yes.
this. And
Yeah.
can't imagine, Tom, do you have children at home?
Yes, I do. I have two of them are still at home, but they're grown, but they're 20 and 27 at the moment.
Well, they're
Our
going to want to
oldest is
be
married
moving.
and moved
They're
out.
going to want to be moving out when this is all over.
Absolutely,
Now
absolutely.
you probably gonna help them move
If
out.
yeah. Actually, my daughter actually been staying with another friend during this time,
Mm-hmm.
and so she spent a lot of time there, um, and so but no grandkids yet, no
No
grandkids yet.
grandkids yet.
So
I'm expecting great
so
grandkids anytime. I really am. I want to be a great grandparent. I think they
Amen.
call you know, James, they call it grand parenting for a reason. Ain't it
Yes.
grand?
Yes. There you
I
go. I
just
like
cannot
that.
imagine what the great grand is going to be like. That's what I want. But I want to ask you a question. Have you experienced what I've experienced through this? I even hate calling it a crisis. I really hate. I wish we could find another word
Yeah.
through the virus period. I have made more connections, good connections. God has sent so many good people to me and put me in places like this right here. Why am I on this call? You know, Tom and I were talking about it in the beginning. I don't remember um, why. I don't even remember what the call was going to be about. But when Tom sent the reminder out this morning, my response was, unless the sky's falling, I'm going to be on, because I just felt that I
yeah.
needed to be on this call. And so I've made a connection with Tom that goes into, um, you've heard the expression that your dream should be big enough that it includes the dreams of others. Well, that's how big
Hmm.
my dream is. And so Tom is now in part of my dream right now. And I have a feeling that part of his dream, but my dream is might be in part of his. And you too, uh, Pastor Friedman. I didn't know you both were pastors, had no idea. But I have made these wonderful connections with people through this virus period that I'm not sure I would have slowed down enough or allowed myself to be quiet enough to receive this.
Mm.
So that's been positive for me.
Amen.
Very good, and it's the feelings mutual, Sonia. Thank you for connecting with us and sharing your time with us, as well as you, James. I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us, and being honest too, and sharing your frustrations with us, because that's where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? It's where we're discovering, that as pastors, sometimes we want to put on that happy face and march forward, but there's times where we feel the anguish, maybe some laments from David in the Psalms or something like that, where
Oh
there's
my
just
goodness.
some
My
crying
Bible
out.
my Bible study class, we're in Psalms 38 now. We did Proverbs first, and we've been jumping, and we're in Psalms now, and my goodness, we're just getting into the second book in Psalms. And it's like, man, poor David. This has been a trip.
Yeah, so he experienced a lot of crisis, a lot of calamity that came his way. In fact, the man that he was trying to protect was out to kill him.
Really?
All right.
And imagine that. But he persevered, and he still did the right thing, in the midst of that, when he could have taken his life.
Right.
Instead, he did the right thing. And so that's kind of where we're at too today, is still continuing to do the right thing. And I guess the hardest thing for any of us is to figure out what the right thing is in the midst of this crisis. And so I guess again, it's that tenacity, just not to give up, not to give up. Again, that quote that I read just a moment ago um, is very powerful in this. And when you get into a tight place and everything goes against you till it seems as though you could not hold on a minute longer, never give up then, for that's just the place and time that the tide will turn. I love that.
I do too. It's so true. It's like that picture we've seen on Facebook forever about the guys with the chisel, thinking he's going to chisel his way, and he's chiseling and trying to get the tunnel finished. And when he gives up, like there's about a foot to the end when he gives up.
Hmm.
You can't give up.
Yeah. How many people, who were stranded someplace gave up just seconds or minutes or an hour just before help came? And,
Hmm.
it's that, and it's difficult. You think of the movie Castaway, and there he was, fighting it and making friends with a volleyball and just persevering through all of that and hoping that one day, someone will see him. And so we've got to have that tenacity to forge ahead through this crisis that we're in. And we don't know how long this particular thing is going to go, really. They're talking that maybe there's going to be social distancing even through the year.
Hmm.
Listen, I was on a panel last night. I watched a panel of speakers last night who were sharing about this very topic, as far as even church ministry is concerned, and they were sharing how possibly we're being kind of reset to go back to the house church experience and make that revival spread, if you will, like the disciples did and the apostles did back in the early days of the church. And
Ah.
they were sharing that perspective that perhaps groups of 10 or 15 could meet at one church, excuse me, one house, and have multiple house churches going on simultaneously. um, and or perhaps there's a lot of churches that have been doing satellite churches where they have people actually come to a building. But imagine if this same concept, Pastor Friedman, that you're leading a service and you've got your key leaders at different houses and they're able to take the baton, if you will, and run the rest of the way with it after you've shared a message, after you've downloaded into them. Then that they can run with that and share the information that's on your heart. That may be the way we have to think about what church is going to be like in the next coming months. Because, if you set something up like this gentleman did with the movie theater, you might get shut down. So we
Right.
don't know. I mean, we have some more freedoms here in Michigan with as far as church goes, and the governor doesn't like that. But still, we want to be wise and keep people safe as well, and be conscious of that because in that is a witness in itself
This is
that
true.
we're trying to reach out and keep people safe. So.
Yeah, our churches here are closed, and I found it very, very sad during Easter that I couldn't have communion with my church. Very sad. It was a big hole in my heart. And
Mhm.
I know I asked people in my Bible study class who are from all over the country, different churches, how they handled it. And, some of them went and got crackers and grape juice, and they all did it together on a Zoom call. Um, and our pastor decided that we would just not do it until we were all together. And I'm so bothered by that um, because it's just the first time I've not had communion in my church.
Mm.
We only do communion once a year in my church, and that's at Easter.
Okay.
So, wow, it's just like that little hole is there, and I'm not really. See, I don't think that I may be wrong, and I'm not saying this from a negative point of view. I think I'm just being realistic. I don't think they're going to say, well, May 17th, we're good, we're out, we're done. June 1st, it's all going to be over. because I think this has become so political on
Hmm.
both sides that this is going to be stretched out. So as long as they can use this politically, it will be stretched out. So I just think realistically, um, this is going to take longer than I just, maybe I'm wrong, but I would think I'm being realistic to think this is going to be stretched out further than we think.
Well, I think we should prepare for that
Yeah,
scenario.
yeah,
Um, but using this time, as John says, that we're using this time, we're being in the middle of the crisis, we're using this time to be innovative and to come up with what the next step is. Because
right,
Pastor Freeman and as I'm affected by this too, we may not be able to do church as usual in the coming months due to all this. Let's say they lift the ban, but people are still going to be skittish about coming out, and so it's going to be a real weird thing. It's not like the some crisis that happened in the past where okay, the dust settled and everybody can come back and hug one another again. That's going to be a while until that happens
I
again.
agree. I
and
agree.
um, and so we've got to figure out what can we do now to change the situation that's coming before us. How can we innovate and still connect with our people and find ways to connect with them? And perhaps this idea last night that was shared about the church house church scenario, or something along that line, where maybe you have people meet at the church in groups of 10 or 20 or whatever the case may be, and just kind of funnel them through from certain times, like have mini service, MINI services, um, short services that you could run these folks through on that basis. We have to be innovative, as I said. Think of the mega churches. you know, they're not going to associate with any of their people for a long time.
A
Um,
lot of people,
whereas
yeah.
whereas the small churches are going to shine during this time,
You
and
know,
they're
I'll tell you, our church is small. We don't have strobe lights and bowling alleys or coffee shops in our church. We're a small Southern Missionary Baptist church, and so we have our choir and specials go to the church building at different times and videotape their singing, and we still sing from hymnals, and all of us, all the members of the church, we have that hymnal at home. And so it is so funny. I told my husband last Sunday, I said, this is the funniest thing that we're singing with them on this pre-recorded Zoom call, because it's all pre-recorded so we can have our music, and then the pastor comes on live from his home. But we are sitting there with our hymnals, and we are singing, and we are feeling the words and the music, and we're looking at our church. We're looking at people in our church singing as though we're right there with them. And I'm not sure the mega churches are experiencing that right now. And are you two a member of a mega church? I'm just wondering how they're handling that.
no, neither one of us. Um, no, yeah, no. I mean, we have about 150, 200 people at our church, and so of course, this whole thing has affected all of that connection. We've continued to have service, whereas the doors are open to the church, and there's about 10 people, that maybe 7 people, that will show up there as the pastor does the word and so forth. I've been leading a lot of that from home, with Zoom and connecting it to YouTube and things of that nature. But it's certainly different. And and even for, I think, Pastor Friedman, you can chime on with this, is that I even saw another pastor. He actually put cardboard cutouts of the faces of his congregation in the pew, in all the pews, and so he could preach to somebody, because it's weird to preach to a computer screen as opposed to actually seeing the reaction from people, and
I
getting
love
that
that
fuel.
idea. I'm
Yeah,
stealing it, Tom. I'm stealing it.
absolutely.
I'm going to present our pastor with some photos, some way, somehow. Because right now he's sitting in his home and giving the sermon live.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you another thing we do. I don't know if this would help you. You might already be doing it. The question came up, how do we have business meetings? And
Hmm.
so, we had a Facebook page, and that's another story I'd like to tell you about if we have time. But so we created a private church page, and it is only strictly members on that. And that's how we're doing our business meetings and talking about our financials and church business. And that's a private group page, church members only. So if you're not doing that yet, you might want to look into doing private group pages, so that the business part of the church still goes on.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Uh, Pastor Freeman, do you have anything to say before we go on to one more question?
Well, basically what I did is, and the TV show I do through your one of your Dr. Cheryl, TCT. One of the production manager told me something once, and I was hosting the show. He said, "You treat the camera like a third person."
Hmm.
So what I decided to do, based on where I felt the Holy Spirit was leading me, is what I decided to do, instead of trying to duplicate a regular service that the church would have normally been there. And as of this month, we'll be doing Zoom and Facebook. So I'll be doing one Zoom service and then one Facebook Live service. So what we decided to do was to kind of a fireside chat. I've encouraged everybody bring your coffee, and I'm just really preaching to them and talking to them. I play the music in the background of the public domain so that I don't run into any copyright infringements or anything such as that. And the church seems to like it. I think I was sharing last week where we got people now coming that's not even members of the church. And we're doing Zoom this Sunday because we do, Sonia, we do communion every first Sunday at First Baptist
Wow.
Church. And the church I pastor is First Baptist Church of East Point. So in March, first Sunday, we did our first online communion service, and it went very well. But we did it on Facebook Live this Sunday, which is this Sunday coming up. We're doing it on Zoom. But that's how we've adjusted that. I kind of like the idea that you brought up, Pastor Tom, as far as small groups and things such as that. That probably is going to be the format for Greater Leadership Alliance, which is the second church I pastor. So I like that idea. That's really Pentecostal vision. So I think we'll probably, I'm going to pray about it and see how the Lord wants to do it. But probably for the second church, I may adopt that format.
Hmm.
I don't think it would work with First Baptist because that's an 85-year-old church. So it's very structured. And that type of format I just don't think would work. But the second church, I have the flexibility to be able to do something like that. So,
Well, certainly, as you said, you're going to pray about it, so that's where the answer will come. But one other thing, real quick, you can do Zoom and also share to YouTube or Facebook as well.
no, I didn't.
Yeah, so we can talk about that after the fact. I'll show you how to do that. But I mean, after this Zoom meeting.
What I
So
have to do, because I was supposed to leave at 8, I'm going to have to break away now. Can I
yeah,
call you tomorrow
you sure can.
or Saturday? Okay. Sonia, it has been a blessing meeting you.
Oh, very nice to meet you, Pastor Friedman. I hope our paths cross again. I kind of have a feeling they will.
Well, Pastor Tom is my friend, and I want to be, like I said, I'm going to try to clear my schedules on Tuesday from here on out. I'm sorry, not Tuesdays, on Thursdays from here on out, so I could be a part of this, because I'm really enjoying it. And I have to throw this time. I am so sorry, but I have to share this with you.
Okay.
I would never stand up at First Baptist Church or Greater Leadership and say how frustrated I am, because I have that Moses complex. Remember they were facing the Red Sea, and Moses looked at the people and said, by tomorrow we will cross the Red Sea and God is going to destroy the Egyptians. And then when the people said, okay, Moses got this, he turned around and went to the Lord and said, I don't have a clue what to do. So you guys heard something that the congregation has not heard today.
Well, hey, your frustration though is for the sake of the people.
Yes, sir.
You want to get out and connect with your people. You're not using this as a time to, sit back in the recliner and forget about them and say, well, we can't connect anyway, so forget about it. I mean, your heart is to get out there and reach out and touch them and to connect with them. So I applaud you for that.
Thank you, sir. God bless you guys. God bless both of you.
God bless you. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir.
All
If
right.
you want
So,
to ask your second question so you can complete your mastermind, I'll stick around for that, and then I've got to go.
all right, we'll do that. We'll come up with one more here. It says that, why do you think so many people believe that life should be easier than it is? And where do you think that belief comes from?
Oh, well, I think I think each generation is getting going a little bit easier on their children, giving like wanting to be their friends instead of being their parents. And I kind of think maybe my daughter's generation might be the last generation that sort of holds their kids accountable for stuff. I don't know. But let me see if I can see this question a little. So many people believe that life should be easier than it is. And where do you think that belief comes from? I'm not sure that the laws of nature or the laws of the world are being taught like they should be, and I'm talking about like the 15 laws, which John takes from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think people believe that life should be easier because they don't know about intentionality and commitment and awareness and things that really should be driving their decision making. They don't follow through with commitments. I mean, for an example, when I ask someone to do something and they say, well, I'll try to do that, I'll try. But if it's going to be hard, they end up not doing it. But when they say they're going to try, I don't even see that as a commitment, because they might get a better deal, or it might be too hard for them to climb that hill. So they're not really committing because they don't know if it's going to be hard, if they're going to be able to do it or not. So whether I think that belief comes from, I just think it comes from the environment they're raised in. I think a strong Christian raising has a lot to do with it. I just believe in the power of prayer and the power of faith, and none of that's easy.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had so many thoughts come to my mind while you were speaking. I think of my oldest son when he was younger. He actually made a statement: why can't the government just pay for me to stay at home? And now the government is paying people to stay home.
Yes.
And I was thinking about this the other day, that had this right now been the time that we were going through that with him, when we were just getting him kicked out the door to get him on the right track, and then this happened, this might have sent him spiraling even further downhill.
Yeah.
than he did. But thank God he pushed through, and now he's just almost a workaholic. He's just really, he loves what he does, and he's found his niche and his passion. But it's that very thing, that we just think life should be easy. We shouldn't have to work. And I even told my son back then, I said, well, there's people that have to go to work to make sure that the farmers have to go to work, to make sure that there's food that goes to the store. The people in the store have to go to work to make sure that you have food that you can come and purchase. And the list goes on and on, and so, but people think it should be easier. But for those who find easy, when adversity comes, when calamity comes, when crisis comes, they find that they have no adapting skills. They have no skills to persevere, and they just fall into a pile of anxiety and fear.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder how they're influenced. Where do they get their influence from?
You're right.
That would answer the question why they would be that way. Well, who influences them and what influences them?
Well, I think, when you come across a person that tells you that, everything's going to be great, eat bonbons and float away on the clouds. And, all that it sounds wonderful. It's something we'd all like to have from time to time. But, tribulation causes the cream to rise to the top. And if you're not, crisis will reveal who we are, and it's a fact.
It really will. It has. Listen, there's a member of my family that my whole life, I can see through her. I know who her authentic self is. She can't hide it from me. And yet she wants other people to think that she's being authentic, but she's not. And the way she's reacted through this virus, and her true self is coming out. And I've even said to my husband, I've said, I'm not surprised she's reacting that way at all, because that's who she is. That's her authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And the only effect this crisis is having on her is it's making her authentic self come out.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hide who you are during a time like this.
That's right. And we can't. So it's going to reveal who the person is. And, the question comes up, will the real leader please stand up, right?
Yes.
And you'll find it in that, because, the others will just back away or run away or hide and I think going back to our last question, I think there's been a lot of hiding away from the challenges that have come, and even the fairly simple challenges, just to avoid them and hope that they will go away. I remember this poster. It showed this polar bear, and it says, whenever I feel like working, I just lay down till the feeling goes away. And and so I think it's similar to that in when we're dealing with a crisis or a struggle or a setback, whatever the case may be. We've got to do whatever is within us to rise up to the challenge, or else we're just going to be shut down. And think of the companies, on our Real Leadership podcast, Life, Love, and Leadership, we featured some restaurants that are going through this similar kind of thing, and talking about
so hard for them. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's said that 11% of restaurants won't survive this shutdown. And so
I kind of think it might be more than that.
Yeah, it very well could be. But that's the heaviness of it. They're not going to snap back. they're just going to end up closing shop forever. Now,
Right.
that's sad on that part, but on the other side of the coin, we're talking about finding the advantage in the adversity. And the advantage is that an entrepreneur is going to say, hey, I want to start a restaurant. Well, hey, I can walk right into this place. It's already retrofitted, already ready to go. I don't even have to hire people to do delivery. I can just connect with Uber or any of these other ones that are doing the delivery services, and away I go. So
And
there's,
another thing that's
yeah.
happening too that I kind of thought was being lost in our society somewhat is people, families having dinner together and actually getting to know their family over dinner, having to actually cook a meal. I have a really good friend. They don't have children and they just eat out all the time. And so now they've had to cook. And by having to cook and prepare and create what they're eating has started a whole new dialogue at the kitchen table.
Mhm.
And it's just a new experience for them. And I have friends who used to always bring, they've got children at home, and they used to always bring takeout, takeout, takeout. That's been dinner. Now they're having to cook and having to sit around the table and eat what's been cooked. And it just creates a whole new dialogue. So I think that's a good thing. I think it's a
Yeah.
good thing that people are having to cook and stay home and be together. And, cooking is a skill. And taking out the garbage and gathering up the garbage and getting it out on time, that's a skill. That someone has to be the garbage collector. I mean,
Mhm.
so all these chores that kids are at home doing now, they're actually skills that they're learning. Um, you know, I know parents that have their children help them balance their checkbook now,
Mhm.
just to teach them some finance and some budgeting. And that's all old school stuff that's kind of coming back.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun, is there?
Right, right, right.
We always cycle back around somehow, some way,
Yeah,
and
I think we needed a reboot. I just think we needed something like this to reboot. Um, my daughter and I were in Italy 20 years ago, and that canal was so nasty and so dirty. I didn't even want to put my hand in the water and touch it. Well, did you recently see on TV how the canals are all clear and clean and they're beautiful just because the tourism has been non-existent in Venice.
mm,
And so now the canal has cleaned itself. So it's that type of reboot that we've needed all over the world.
mhm.
Let's just reboot and regroup and slow down and think of what's really important in life. We've been going too fast for too long.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And this reboot, I just had the idea of Noah and the Ark,
Hmm.
and because that affected the whole world, and
Yeah.
and things changed at that point, as they're changing now, and the whole industry, the industry of media and movies and you know everything has been affected, and just to see the creativity that's coming out of this, that
Hmm.
people who are still trying to find a way to connect with others and trying to be effective, and it's really interesting, and I think we're going to see a lot of movies based on this season,
Oh,
as well as,
there are already
yeah.
reality shows being taped right now. Reality shows, people, videotaping what they're doing going through this. And I kind of laugh and I think, well, yeah, that's what we're all doing. Well, there is going to be a movie. Absolutely. At least one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I actually saw a trailer to something 2 days ago. I don't know if that's all it was. It was just a trailer, and that's going to be the end of it, or if it was actually showing a movie that's possibly going to come out about this African American family, and the man of the home decides, I'm tired of this. I want to get out, and the whole desire is for him to stay in because the African American community here in Michigan anyway are being affected more by the COVID virus than the other um, folks here in the state. Um, and so maybe it's because they're doing more public transit, or they're just not staying home. They're just going out and shooting hoops or whatever. Anyway, so maybe that's what that movie was kind of about. That little clip I saw,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's coming, and there's going to be some innovating coming. My brother-in-law with his home care company has just come up with some fantastic ideas for getting hand sanitizer and masks and different things like that for his company. Just
Hmm.
was very innovative in how he made it all come together. And, just connecting with some people on Facebook saying, hey, I need some masks, and
Hmm.
it encouraged another person to start making the masks at their house. And just the list goes on. And the community came together. And now there's other franchisees that are contacting him and asking him for some of his supplies. So it's uh, it's a powerful thing. And in here in the state, by the way, there's breweries that actually have started making hand sanitizer. And
Wow.
then I know you heard that the automotive uh, companies are making ventilators
Hmm.
and things of that nature. So people are innovating in the middle of the crisis. Now, they would have never done that. They would have never tried it had this crisis not come. So we learn a
Right.
whole lot of stuff from the midst of what we're going through. We find the advantage. We find the silver lining again in that gray cloud. So,
Right. And I'd like to share one thing with you before I have to go.
mhm.
I didn't realize it was so late, but my husband has come home from work since we've been on this call, and I need to get down and um, take care of my husband tonight, feed him some dinner if he hasn't already done it. But, another thing this crisis has forced some people to do, and I wish more people would focus on this. A lot of people have lost jobs. A lot of people have lost jobs. And a very close friend of mine 2 years ago posted a Facebook video because she had been, quote, eliminated from her position.
Mm.
And I've shared that video on my Facebook page because it really does apply to a lot of people today who feel they've been eliminated. Call it what you want, fired, let go, eliminated. But do you know that we really can't be eliminated
Mm.
because we are equipped with skills and gifts that God gave us? So we can't be eliminated. We can retool ourselves
Mhm.
and do something someplace else because we all have gifts. And so we may come out of this crisis, maybe not doing the same job we were doing before, but we really can't be eliminated because of
Mhm.
our gifts, our God-given talents and gifts.
I agree. Maybe we'll find that we're going to be doing what we should have been doing all along.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's enforced in me. It's become clear to me that I am on the journey that I'm supposed to be on, without a doubt. And I can see that through this new season that we're in right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to
thank you.
thank you for inviting me. I
You're
really am
welcome.
so glad you did, and I hope you invite me to your next mastermind. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
And
you'll be hearing from me.
all right, I can't wait.
Okay. Take care. God
And
bless.
you too. God
Okay.
bless you too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. And thank you all for participating in this mastermind on leading through crisis. And, check out our website at realleadershipcompany.com for any further information about what we're doing as far as masterminds and the coaching and the speaking, the training that we offer, and so much more. We're more than meets the eye. And so we want you to connect with us and share with us, and also tell us what you want to know about, what's important to you as far as leadership, or what's going on in society or in the culture that you live in. And let us know how we can connect with you. And let us know, is there someone that you know that we need to know? If you could connect us with that person. We're always just one person away from the connection that needs to happen. And so, and then let us know how we can be a blessing and a service to you. So thank you for participating in this mastermind. We look forward to seeing you again. Take care.